Hey guys, welcome to another Watchmen Tower of Babel breakdown. My name's Dan D'Souza. I'm joined by Jeremy Kozier.
Hello.
No Julian this week. It's just the two of us. But what we're here to do is break down episode 7 of HBO's Watchmen series, An Almost Religious Awe. So what we do on this show, if you're not familiar, we're going to talk predominantly about the show as a show. There will, of course, be references to the source material, the Alan Moore comic, as well as Zack Snyder's 2009 film. So if you haven't read or seen that, I can't imagine that you're following this show too closely or well, but I would say give those a shot, but there will be definitely spoilers for each of those properties. With that being said, we're going to jump into the episode. We're going to do things a little bit differently this week. As opposed to going sort of in chronological order, we kind of used to go scene by scene. The structure of this episode, it didn't quite make sense to do it that way. So it'll be slightly different, same idea, same discussion of the actual content, the same breakdown, just not quite what you're used to. Real quick, wait, before we jump into the episode, I have to mention our social media plugs. Twitter, Facebook, Patreon. We're very searchable on Google. Tower of Babel is spelled with 2 B's, or total of 3 B's, 2 in the middle. Babel like I'm talking right now, not Babel as in the biblical version. With that being said, we are really investing in our Patreon right now. So we're doing a monthly movie club, and we actually just released a free episode for everybody. That's sort of a teaser of what we do on a monthly basis within our Patreon. So I would definitely suggest go check that out. It's the Watchmen 2009 film club. Okay, now that all that's out of the way, Jeremy, let's get into the episode itself. This one's huge. This one blew me away.
Did it? Is it your favorite episode?
It's got to be up there. There's a recency bias to it right now, but like, the show has found a way to be just so surprising and so like it's paying homage to the source material, and I still recognize everything, but at the same time unpredictable where in terms of where these characters are going or even coming from, really. So
you're in awe, you would say.
I was almost a religious awe. Yeah, I would say that. And
those are words from Dr. Manhattan himself from the comic. I don't know if you remember that, but that's in reference to the people of Vietnam when meeting him.
Right. I see. In my mind, it was more. That's a direct quote, so you're probably obviously right about this. My interpretation was, when Wally Weaver is explaining to the public what he meant to say when he was misinterpreted.
Yes.
So the misquote is that Superman exists and he's American, but the actual quote was God exists and he's American.
Right.
And when he addresses that, he explains to the audience that if you feel a sudden and crushing feeling of religious terror, that indicates only that you're still sane. Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing.
Right. So yeah, we'll definitely get to Dr. Manhattan. A lot of revelations here, but we should start with Angela, as the show does. Well, I guess first it does mention Dr. Manhattan in the form of a documentary, which is, I guess, in the vein of the American Hero Story type thing, where they show a trailer for it. Looks kind of cool. We'll never actually see that full documentary, but still pretty cool nonetheless. But Angela gets her superhero origin story to a degree, right? The beginnings of it, right. What leads her on the path to becoming a police officer. Who knew it was going to be from a VHS tape called Sister Night?
I didn't know if that was a thing or not.
Do you remember the tagline on the?
What was it?
Something about a nun with a gun, a motherfucking gun, or something like that. Right?
So it's like one of those like old school blaxploitation
pretty much
kind of films.
Yeah. But yeah, so we see this through her own memories finally, right? Obviously, last episode experiencing all of Will's traumatic memories, but this time her very own as a child in Vietnam. The actor playing young Angela was also in Shazam. I don't know if you recognized.
That's that little girl.
That's the little girl, right?
The purple one.
Yes.
I don't remember her name.
Yeah, me neither. But she was fantastic, and she's fantastic here. But yeah, it's a really cool thing with Angela here, how her memories and Will's are blending together now, but we're experiencing more of Angela's with flashes to the ones we saw of Will in Tulsa when he was just a kid and as Hooded Justice. What did you think of that?
It's such a cool dynamic because now after last episode, his memories are hers to a degree, right? So like she
felt
won't be able
them,
to tell the difference.
Right.
So she's experiencing them in tandem. It's really confusing, but that's what the show does best: is take a complicated concept like that and make it cool.
Yeah. And we learn that she's with Lady. Well, we learned last episode that she's with Lady Trieu, but she's giving her a treatment that only she knows how to do because nostalgia, which she invented, ended up having addictive qualities, and people were suffering from it. So she had to come up with a solution. So she came up with a treatment. But I guess we see Angela's parents, and a lot of Dr. Manhattan
Yes.
stuff, right? Because this is after the war.
I was gonna say, like, do you think this is like a Manhattan Day, like they're celebrating their Independence Day, Vietnam, or do you think that they just love Dr. Manhattan in general?
I think it's a mixture of both, but we learn that through this traumatic event that unfolds, that there's separatists that people who were from Vietnam are not everybody's a fan of Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, of course, because he's a liberator to some and a conqueror to others.
Right. And then we see this cool sequence, this traumatic sequence where a suicide bomber takes out Angela's parents, and she kind of sees the whole thing unfold, which I thought was pretty cool. Teasing her prowess later on.
Yeah, her attention to detail. So she was aware of it. She's a kid. Obviously, she couldn't do anything about it, but it was just much like last episode, we're experiencing the show almost through her eyes at that point. And it just slows down while she watches her parents die.
And then before that, her dad doesn't want her to watch the Sister Night movie, and they have this conversation about masks. And then we can relate that to when Angela's father was a child. He was scarred when Will, bust open the room to see him with the same put it on the white makeup and the whole costume, and he's obviously been scarred from that. And
well, it's that in combination with the fact that he would have been brought up without his father back in Tulsa, so the mom would have not. I don't want to use the term poison, but I can't think of a better one right now.
Right.
But she would have not had a great opinion of masks in general, and that transcended to the kid.
Right. And then we meet Grandma June, who we were teased very briefly last episode as well, when we saw an old black lady in a POV view say, we're going home now.
I think I'm going to take care of you.
Yeah. So she adopts Angela after her parents' tragic death. And they plan on going to Tulsa and starting a new life, essentially.
Yeah, and the impression is that it was a very brief reunion, right?
I guess so. I mean, obviously, it took place like over 10 minutes or so. But yeah, very sad. Obviously, when they pack everything up in the taxi, they're ready to go, and she walks around the car, and that's when she collapses, gets a heart attack. Obviously,
heart attack, aneurysm, something like that. So I guess from there, little kid Angela still gets sent back. You presume the ticket was purchased. I don't know how that kind of stuff works, right?
Yeah, I don't.
But regardless, these are both two huge factors in her life and in what she becomes later on in life. I think it's unfortunate because there's not a lot of connection between her and Grandma June. The larger connection would be because she has Will's memories now, so she knows.
Yeah, she has a better
as an
understanding.
adult, but as a kid, she would have just met the lady, and then the lady dropped dead, and like that's why you see the kid doesn't really react; it just kind of stares at her.
Right. So I guess we can talk about. We talked about the nostalgia and how it was banned, and the elephant. Like, what did you think of that review?
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
The first thing I said, I was watching it with my parents, and I said, "Oh, because elephants never forget, right?" So that's where nostalgia comes from.
Yeah, I guess that's the cute joke of it all.
But that can't be true, right? Like,
there's that one sequence where she gets like this video implanted in her brain to tell you how nostalgia works, right? How these memories like pollinate with your neurons, and this treatment, I guess, taking some of the cerebral like fluid from the elephant can detach that nostalgia, that sticking, that could create like an identity crisis where you forget who you are.
So the elephant's the cure, not the source, is what you're saying.
I think it just like eliminates that overdose that's happening in the brain.
And I mean, that's probably fair. Like, she's obviously hooked up to the elephant while she's under treatment, while she's being cured, essentially. So that would make more sense.
Right.
Elephants have never really been a part of the series before. Like, this is completely new and random and arbitrary to me.
It seems very like Losty, right? Like the old series, like just a random thing like that.
Yeah. No explanation provided within the episode. Maybe later on we'll get one. Maybe we won't. Maybe it's just up to us.
Maybe not. So I guess we can talk about Laurie. She serves as a lot of exposition here when she meets with Jane Crawford, Judd Apatow's widow, or Apatow, Judd Crawford's widow. And she's figured everything out. She's put the pieces together, but mostly because we find out that she has recordings of Angela while she was under the effects of nostalgia, where she's repeating certain phrases and words and stuff, including Cyclops. And and hang yourself now,
Right.
and things like that. And she's divulging all this to Jane. I'm not sure exactly why or what she's going to confirm. I guess she wanted to see if she's ever heard the word Cyclops. But what happens here is
she's got a secret evil trapdoor.
Yeah, that might be that's the second craziest thing of the entire episode. But obviously, when it happens, like what the
she presses the switch a couple times and it doesn't work, and the whole time Laurie's not really reacting. She's like, "What are you doing?
What are you doing?" She feels it, but I thought she was going to lunge at her, right? Like use some of that crime fighting experience from the past. But I guess she's a little old now.
Yeah, so she underestimated her. I mean, like you said, it's a lot of exposition. They're kind of explaining the story here. The story so far, if anybody wasn't really keeping track.
Yeah, so Lady Trieu is definitely explaining tons to Angela, but I mean, rightfully so. We've been seeking a lot of answers. We didn't get too much from her. We just got that. I guess we can jump to Lady Trieu just for a bit here. She reveals her plan to stop the 7K. And the Millennium Clock still has something to do with that. She still talks about saving humanity with it, but she still doesn't reveal what it does exactly.
Yeah, it's really convoluted right now. So like there's these opposing factions. Obviously 7K is the bad guys. That Cyclops is 7K. Ostensibly Lady Trieu and Hooded Justice, Will Reeves, are on the other side of that.
Correct.
And so she says that she's trying to stop them. It's not really clear what her plan is.
No, but we get some answers talking about her daughter, which isn't her daughter, it's her mother.
Her daughter's her mother.
She uses the word clone.
What do you know?
We finally get a confirmation with the word clone. And she's slipping her nostalgia every day to get her, up to speed with her own memories to make her mother her actual mother, to have all that experience. And she wants to do it in time for the reveal of the clock,
Mm-hmm.
as well as she mentions her father who is going to be arriving, I think she says, or joining us. So we've been theorizing a while back about who her father could be. I saw a popular one where the comedian could potentially be her father, right? Obviously having many relationships in Vietnam when he was there.
Right.
But it could be Dr. Manhattan. It could be Ozymandias. I mean, those are the only options I would think.
Well, yeah, because the way that they set it up, it's that it has significance. It's not just some random dude.
Right. Do you have an idea?
My pet theory is Veidt. There seems to be some sort of intrinsic connection between the two of them. Like whatever she's doing,
other than just just buying the company,
the statue. It's her satellites around. I'm assuming whatever moon it is around Ganymede or whatever. There's something tying the two of them together, and other than that, there's nothing that I can see that really brings Veidt back into the fold.
Right.
Other than maybe Manhattan, but we just at the very end of this episode got a taste of that, so we have no idea what he's thinking right now.
Not at all. I guess we can talk about Joe Keene now. Once Laurie falls through the trap chair, very Dr. Evil-esque, except for no flames, I guess. And we've been getting all this exposition, and then this was a cool line where Laurie just doesn't care. She gave him don't give me the whole spiel, all that stuff. Yeah. And then we finally get what the 7K is all about. They are trying to find Dr. Manhattan, bring him in, and duplicate his powers, essentially, and then kill him. That's what they're doing with those batteries. Their transportation device obviously plays into getting him and then killing him somehow.
They want an all-white Dr. Manhattan.
Right. They are. The plan was not, or I guess Jane reveals that the plan was not just to become president. It was at one point, but then something extraordinary, I think she said something extraordinary happened. And then all of a sudden the presidency became small potatoes. So there's some sort of revelation along the way to where being the president and then enacting the change to go back to a white supremacy type regime, that wasn't the only way to do it. It was basically now we figured out a way to become God, and then we can make it happen that way.
Right.
So that's pretty crazy. I don't think we saw that coming.
That's huge. I think we'll talk about theories towards the end of the episode after we get through the Manhattan stuff. Right now we're just sort of touching on the main characters, but that's there's a lot of room for posturing there.
Yeah.
Postulating, I should say.
But then it just clearly sets up that they are the bad guys. Lady Trieu is kind of like the Ozymandias this time around, but Ozymandias was also the bad guy, certainly last time around. Well, I mean, it depends.
He's certainly a bad guy.
Right.
Killed a million people.
And then if we can jump to his story now, right, being on trial, he is facing all that stuff that he knows about again in this weird, very funny scene. I was laughing the whole time, I think. Like when they revealed the jury, I don't know. Obviously we knew it was going to be a bunch of
the same
clones
two people
or whatever, but it's just like, and and then knowing that they know all the things that he's done, but they still don't have like the capacity, or we still don't know the rules exactly.
Well, it really seems like there's just one rule, is that you can't leave.
Yeah.
Like they're okay with being brought up just to die, and their entire lives are at his beck and call. But the fact that he tried to leave is what the real betrayal is.
Thou
to them.
shalt not leave. But yeah, I just found this scene just incredible. Like this manifestation of all his thoughts, and like this jury and the prosecutor against him. But like me knowing, or the audience knowing, that he's like the smartest man of all time. Like, he's going to say something or just like flip the script here. And that doesn't really happen. He just keeps going deeper, especially when he has his chance to say something and he farts.
It's a fart joke, which is a little lowbrow for Adrian Veidt. He has he's a flair for the dramatic, and like it's not something that I would have associated with his character, but it is what it is.
I think it's like an evolution, especially if he's like here trapped, and like again the timeline of this, right? It's like every year this is happening or something like that.
So
right?
yeah, we've realized now that every time we've gone to Veidt, it's been a year down the road. Right. Every time we had that cake, there was another candle on it, essentially.
Yeah.
And in this trial, they reference that this is day 365 of the trial. So this is a year from when he tried to escape and was captured by the game warden. And so he's been. I can understand.
So he's been on trial every day. Then
that's what it seems like. Yeah.
So that's what I mean. That's why I think it's just funny that he doesn't care to explain to these people who he doesn't even equate to being relative to him at all.
I think he's clearly done playing the role now, because that's what he would have to be. He's playing along because the alternative is insanity. But now he's concocted this way to potentially get off the moon. And yeah, he's sick of being there and sick of being around those people.
And then they do this cool thing where the jury, like, well, how do you find him? They say guilty, but then the game warden says that's not good enough or something like that, and then brings out pigs for some reason, and then they determine that he is still guilty with the pigs.
Another really random animal encounter. Who knows what that means? But it does. He's sort of like crying at the end, eh? Like he's emotional
because, like I said, like all his faults and errors are coming through this trial. They don't just mention what's happening there. They mention the 3 million people he killed with the squid attack. They have that picture of the squid and all that stuff. So he's really like going through all that traumatic stuff like over and over and over again. So I'm curious to see what his like actual answer will be at the end of this. Because like what's next here? He's guilty, now what?
Yeah, exactly. And my impression of it so far is that he's probably been found guilty before. Like they've gone through this song and dance before. Those clones probably aren't capable of killing him or doing anything to him, really. The game warden.
But this is the furthest I think he's ever gotten, right? Like actually getting his own body out of the field.
Right. I don't know. I don't know what to make of him being emotional, because I don't believe that character considers anything that he's done to be a mistake. Like I don't think he feels regret.
But even in that trial, though, when they hammer it home the amount of people he killed, all that stuff,
he did this thing. Like in the comic, he and in the movie, he says that he's made himself feel every death, and like he knows that it's wrong to kill people, and he was a pacifist beforehand. But this was the only solution. This was his final solution, right? So I don't think that he would take it back. But yeah, maybe he still feels emotional because of what he's done to those people, but it had to be done.
Yeah,
it was a difficult decision.
So obviously this episode is very Angela heavy, Lady Trieu heavy, Laurie and the 7K, a little bit Ozymandias here. We don't get any Looking Glass except for a sequence where Petey is at the bunker, and we see the aftermath of that one cliffhanger of Looking Glass's full origin episode.
Right.
And a bunch of 7K members dead.
Yeah.
No Looking Glass.
Too
and
badass.
One member with no mask. So we presume that Wade, Looking Glass, is wearing a Rorschach mask. So that's pretty
amazing.
Damn cool.
That's so cool.
Only 2 episodes left, but are we going to get a thread where he infiltrates, and be much like Rorschach in the original comic, where he kind of he gets the last word.
Yeah.
You're going to everything is said and done. He doesn't prevent it from happening, but so what does Looking Glass do?
Yeah, no, I certainly believe he's going to be infiltrating. Like he could already be there when Laurie is talking to Joe.
So does this feel like there's going to be this end battle almost where everyone's going to be there? Like it didn't seem like it was like that.
I didn't think so. It is kind of setting us up to believe that now, because there's a couple different factions and things are coming ahead. There's all these intersecting stories that are all kind of merging now or converging towards the end of the season.
Right.
But the thing is, the reveal at the end of the episode, the Dr. Manhattan thing throws a wrench in all of that because he can just change any of that with the snap of his fingers.
Yeah, so I guess we can talk about that big twist, the reveal. Dr. Manhattan has been among us this entire time, and it is Calvin.
There was no way to guess that, by the way. Like, that's
Apparently there was someone on Reddit who did come up with this theory.
okay.
I believe it was like around 20 some odd days ago, so kudos to that guy.
Yeah, because this is the first episode that wasn't released to like the press ahead of time, right? This one we're all on the same
correct.
page
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
So there was nobody cheating,
Mhm.
essentially. I don't know what evidence there was to suggest that Cal was Manhattan, other than the fact that he's an amnesiac. So I guess he has no memory of his past. So like you could, it's very loose there. But that's it. Like he doesn't, because it's very clear to me, anyways, throughout the season that he probably doesn't even know that he's Manhattan, right?
No, because I think somewhere they explain that he erased his own memories to jump into this life and live a normal life.
Right.
That's what he had to do. So the way I see it is that he wanted to do that and just live an average life, but I think he had to get rid of Veidt because I don't think he wanted Veidt to intervene at all or do anything. So I think it's not Lady Trieu's doing that Veidt is on the moon. I think that's Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, I think that almost has to be Manhattan. I think Manhattan put him there.
I think just to sideline him. I think he sold him on a promise, like, you did this horrible thing. Like you said, he's thought about the consequences and all that stuff. But he was sold on a paradise where he could just live free there, and it turned out that it's a prison, and now he wants back.
It makes sense, and it would make sense for Trieu to be looking for him rather than monitoring him. It just
and she reveals that it was a fake news feed, which I think we called a while ago, or it was an option of Dr. Manhattan on Mars. That's fake.
Yeah. It just seems a little out of character for Manhattan to do that for Veidt, to keep him alive or to like try to placate him. Manhattan's kind of above. Like again, without spoiling anything from the comic or the movie, like there's characters that Manhattan just kills just because they're in the way, and they're not like minor characters. I don't know why he would think to preserve Veidt's life, especially after what he did.
Yeah, I mean, I guess those are going to get tied up for sure. We still have Lady Trieu in the golden Veidt statue. Was there a shot of that in this episode? Because
yeah, it transitioned.
That just reminded me that okay, this guy is coming back, but he's in that statue. Like, why wouldn't he be?
Yeah, so it cut right from like it was a close up on his face as he was getting emotional and kind of crying at the trial, and then his face turned into that statue.
There's a lot of close ups in this entire episode.
A lot of really cool transitions. There's one that goes from Angela's eyes to
that one's really cool.
Glass in
that
church.
One's very reminiscent of the comic in terms of its transitions.
Yeah,
Bian when she's explaining her whole thing.
Right.
Very super close up. I like the Rorschach-esque test, even though they weren't Rorschach images. They were just simple images that we were guessing what Angela was going to say or what you could say or what the obvious answer was, and I like how they played around with that.
Yeah, and it's the same idea as a Rorschach test. Is about interpreting an image. And even earlier in the episode when Angela first gets up, I believe Lady Trieu asks her what were you dreaming about or something, and she says
she lies. Yeah,
she has a lie similar to Rorschach in the comics and in the movie where he is
a pretty
doing a Rorschach.
butterfly,
some nice clouds.
Yeah, so that stuff's awesome. So yeah, Angela and Dr. Manhattan. So we're definitely gonna get that story of how they met. They clearly met in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Manhattan did a lot of bad things in Vietnam. We get a really cool shot of the war in Vietnam with his giant self walking. We don't get his head, but I thought that was pretty sweet that they pulled that imagery off.
That's straight out of the comics.
Yeah, super iconic from the comics. Arguably even more iconic in the Zack Snyder movie, just the way it's shot and looks, right?
In the Snyder film, it's more like it's about Manhattan. It's you're experiencing the comedian through Manhattan's eyes during that sequence. Yeah. This is more like experiencing Manhattan through Vietnam's eyes. Yeah,
and just like an overhead helicopter shot of him walking down doing his thing. So are we assuming that he feels some sort of remorse of what went down there and decided to live his simple life? And he met Angela, and he knew of Angela's trauma, her family trauma, much like how he sympathized with Laurie and the comedian and her mother and all that stuff. and try to right a wrong somehow.
It's really complicated, and it's gonna continue. Like anytime we talk about Dr. Manhattan, it becomes complicated because of the way that he experiences time. He experiences
so
time
because he
simultaneously.
knows his own future. He
So-
knew that he was gonna get together with Angela.
Exactly, he would have had to have, unless there's some other sort of tachyon thing going on, because that's what it was in the comic. That was the only way he was able to be surprised, is because he was repressed.
Didn't defeat him, but yeah.
But it prevented him from seeing his own future. It was
Right.
clouded. That had never happened to him before. So ostensibly, with that gone, that tachyon burst gone, he could see his past and future simultaneously. So he would know he would know about his future with Angela. However, the reveal, like when she bludgeons her husband with a
With
hammer,
the hammer, yeah.
she pulls a little metal
What a crazy
thing out of his forehead
sequence, man.
that looks like the hydrogen symbol.
Yeah, it's the hydrogen
right?
symbol.
So that,
And then we see a blue glow.
yeah, in her eyes. So
And she
that-
says, "We're in a lot of trouble, baby," or something. Like, what a crazy twist of an ending. Especially when we're following Angela. So much is getting revealed to her, and we're through those eyes too, getting everything revealed to us. And this whole time she was hiding this fact that she knew who Dr. Manhattan is, and that she was in love with him. They had this secret relationship, so much so to where we know Dr. Manhattan erased his own memory, because when she's explaining these things to Cal, he has no idea what's going on.
yeah,
But she's willing to go through it and basically end Cal's life to somehow. We don't know anything about the hydrogen symbol thing that she rips out of the head, the blue glow. What does that mean?
I'm assuming so that metal piece that she pulled out of his head is whatever was, preventing his powers and preventing him from seeing his future and allowing him to have a human normal life, normal in asterisk.
And why does Angela do this now? Like, what,
Well, because now Lady Trieu knows Manhattan's walking the earth. She's said as
Yeah.
much. So the cat's out of the bag there, and people are looking for him. And now that she knows, I think, does Angela know that 7 Cavalry is looking for Manhattan at this point? Or is it
Yeah, I
just
think
Laurie?
Lady Trieu reveals the plan to Angela that they're trying to duplicate his powers
Right.
and enforce a regime on the entire world. And she clearly not down for that based off her oppression that she experienced
Mhm.
when she was young, due to the effects of Dr. Manhattan. She despised Dr. Manhattan.
Lady Trieu?
Lady Trieu, yeah. For what he did in Vietnam and for leaving mankind.
Right. Okay, so let's back up here. Like, let's try to piece together the Manhattan and Angela relationship if we can. Which we can't, of course. But
No.
we were assuming that they met at some point in Vietnam, right? That's what you said.
Yes, and I think there's trailers where we see this is going to happen. This is we see a trailer where it's Dr. Manhattan in a suit, and he bends over, picks up the mask. He enters a diner. Angela's in that diner wearing her whatever uniform wherever she started in Vietnam.
So this is when she's an adult, though.
Yeah,
She's
it's
a police
it's-
officer.
Yeah, it is the actress. What's her name again?
Regina King.
Regina King. Yes. So I think it's gonna be really cool when we get the reveal of Dr. Manhattan. I think it's gonna be Cal. Like, it's gonna be that actor.
Like
I think.
that voice. Yeah.
Yeah, and being blue.
Yeah.
Uh,
Man.
like what a hidden thing that's been this whole time. Like, I went to
Yeah.
the guy's Twitter, Yahya Abdul Mati, I think is his name.
Right.
And he just posted a video. He's in the back of a cab or something, and he's just filming himself laughing like uncontrollably because he's just been holding on to this. And this whole time, we just thought this was this supportive husband, right? This new age role, and everyone appreciated him. And then Laurie had all these sexual jokes towards him, which is kind of funny because they have their past. And there's an Easter egg with the dildo. It's called Excalibur. So Laurie's ex is Cal.
Oh, come on.
A bar.
That's ridiculous.
I don't know if that's. It's got to be.
I get it.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a stretch, but I get it. Okay, so then Manhattan and Angela, they would have met, and he implemented this device to turn him into a human, essentially. And
Right.
so she's been keeping this a secret her entire life from
Yeah.
everybody, even the kids. It's real complicated. So like, they would have started off a relationship with him as Dr. Manhattan, or do you think this? Yeah,
I think so.
or do you think that she didn't know? Do you think he was pretending to be a human when he met her, and they had a relationship?
Then there'd be too much trickery there, I think.
So here's
I think it's just another Laurie and Dr. Manhattan type thing all over again.
So the only reason that I push back against that is that we know that the White Knight is going to be a larger. We're going to come back to it, right?
And we cut away from the attack.
Right.
Cal was put out of play in that scenario, and then Angela passes out right before the assailant is about to shoot her again.
What I'm thinking is
Dr. Man pops out at that because he knows it's going to happen.
He would have to save her at that point, and he's the only one who could save her at that point. She's bleeding out on the floor and has a gun pointed at her face. He's the only one that can save her. I think when he does that, it might be the first time that she experiences that. Like it's a reveal for Angela potentially, maybe not.
As being Dr. Manhattan?
Dr. Manhattan. But what it really is it's a reveal for 7K. And that's what changes things for Joe Keene. So everything up to the White Knight, he was, they were going through their paces. He wanted to be president, and they wanted to still create this white supremacy.
How did they know about that happening, though? Because wouldn't Angela keep that secret? So
I think there's got to be somebody who witnesses it.
And that also reveals that Angela was supposed to die. Judd was part of that whole thing. He was going to kill her.
And we know that after the White Knight, things changed for him and for Joe Keene. So I think the only thing that makes sense to me is this revelation that Dr. Manhattan is alive and impersonating a human. Yes. That's what changes things. That creates this possibility.
That they could take that as well.
Exactly. That has to be the case in my mind.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong because the show can do essentially anything. There's a sleeping elephant in this show for some reason that nobody explains.
So is there anything else you need to touch on? I mean, that's
the
all the big stuff, right?
That's the big reveal. There's a lot of big reveals actually, but we have touched on them. So the fact that Lady Trieu's clone daughter is actually a clone of her mother.
Yeah, very, very strange.
Ridiculous.
And we know that she wants her mother and her father, who very briefly isn't there. She wants them there to be themselves in the reveal of this clock tower, which tells time.
Okay, so let's expand on that. So then, let's work with the comedian theory. You think that she has a little baby clone of the comedian that's going to be brought up with his memories?
I mean, that'd be
a cool reveal.
That'd be very cool. I personally would like it to be comedian over Dr. Manhattan or Ozymandias.
Right.
And what do you think of that farm, right? The Kent farm, and the thing that crash lands. How did she know that was going to crash land there, and that is hers? Is that some sort of Dr. Manhattan foresight?
And also, I'm not clear on where in the timeline that takes place, right? Because for the most part, the show is chronological, but we're jumping back and forth with the Veidt thing. But that scene with Lady Trieu, it's the first time we meet Lady Trieu. I believe it's episode 3 or 4.
3 or 4, yeah.
Which she's talking to that family on the farm, and she takes their land, whatever.
Yeah.
We have no idea where that is in the timeline. We're assuming it's in the past relative to where we are now with Angela because the tower's not built, but that's not necessarily the case because we can't see it. That's a huge question mark as well. What fell out of the sky? It would have to have something to do with Dr. Manhattan.
Or Ozzy's return.
And so if that's in the past.
I mean, I still think it's all ramping up here. This is a very...
Oh, of course it is.
Expository episode for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, still more questions, especially with Cal, Dr. Manhattan, all that stuff. But that's going to be revealed. We know that's going to be a whole episode. Their meeting, what it signifies, what Dr. Manhattan motive was. We're going to find out what the 7th Cavalry, what their device is with the batteries, with the transportation device. How did they figure out a way to locate him, transport him, take his powers, kill him? That's not really revealed yet. We don't know Lady Trieu. We know her clock tower is going to save humanity. It's a way of somehow subverting the 7K, their planned attack, which is happening pretty imminently, right? Obviously, with 2 episodes left. But she could also look like a bad guy as well, right? Like the Veidt aftermath.
Yeah, I think her plan to save humanity. Look, we already know what Veidt's plan to save humanity was, and it was killing 3 million people to save billions, right? Mm. It's unclear what the clock tower does, but it does something, and that is her master plan. I think that she is very similar to Veidt in terms of her appreciation for human life and understanding that sacrifices need to be made. So I don't know that she's necessarily a good guy. The thing with the show, and this episode is a good example. At the end of the series, we'll be able to look back, and it'll all make much more sense.
Oh, but yeah.
While we're experiencing it in real time, it's really hard to predict. So now,
which is a good thing, I think.
Yeah, no.
Most shows are pretty predictable. This one is.
It's certainly not predictable.
I mean, the one thing that was predictable was Hooded Justice, but even then, that wasn't clear until that one episode, right?
It wasn't like it was predictable in that that was one of the theories that was put out there.
Yeah,
But
and it started with Will in his apparel that he was wearing, right? He was wearing this big red cloak thing with a hood, not the hood on, but like just having that color, that imagery. It just looked that way.
yeah, that makes sense. And something that you said right before we started recording actually is that now, given the information that you have about Cal, going back and watching the previous episodes, to really look for those Easter eggs, or just to see how you can interpret things differently.
And the books he's reading, right? Look at the book; they're always like these.
This episode, it was For Whom the Bell Tolls,
right? Which when I saw that, I was like, oh, is he gonna die this episode, or is it just calling to like the clock and the time's up and whatnot? But yeah, it was a tease on his ultimate fate.
I guess so. Yeah, his time as Cal is up. Ask not for whom the bell tolls; it tolls for thee.
Right. Correct. But yeah, I don't know, man. This show I'm just all in though. Like I think this can be a pretty divisive episode for people, just with that big twist with Angela, right? Because it is a big switch around with Angela, right? We thought that she was our vessel, and then there's a bit more to her, and then now it's completely attached to this big question that's been looming over the entire series with Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah. This episode really
doesn't really put her like, it puts her like on a side now.
Well, not necessarily. We'll see what happens.
So?
I think she's still going to be a huge part of the major story going forward.
Yeah, no, 100%. I just mean that I think she's now
in terms of like power dynamics
tied with Dr. Manhattan. They have a love thing going on.
I mean, as much as this was a reveal, the whole concept of Dr. Manhattan is still a big question mark. We have no idea how he's going to be acting, what his relationship is with the world at large, what his opinion is of people. Has that changed since we last saw him? So I'm very excited for next week's episode. I can understand this episode being divisive as well. This one, I think, out of all of them, is probably the most comic booky episode.
I can see that. I think it's one of the funniest.
There's a lot of humor. And
I was laughing in the beginning with all the just the Americanization of Dr. Manhattan and all the puppets and all that stuff and the songs that were playing.
Living in America.
That big puppet of Dr. Manhattan that just like dropped down onto the stage behind the title. I laughed pretty hard. But I thought the imagery there was really clever, which related to one of Dr. Manhattan's quote about, we're all puppets. I'm just one who can see the strings.
Right.
And that the character who's stringing that Dr. Manhattan puppet, he was later identified by a young Angela as one of the assailants who handed the package to the suicide bomber. So
he was the puppet master of that criminal conspiracy.
Right. And then that sequence, just to jump back briefly, showcases Angela's experience with law enforcement and like not like due process, right? Like they knew that the guy was guilty. They took him back. They killed him immediately. It kind of just reflects how she became as a cop.
Yeah, how she became a vigilante, right? She did what she had to do, get the job done, and bend the rules where you have to.
Just a lot of great imagery through the nostalgia, memory blending with there's that one where they just showed the badge again with the blood droplet on it with some other cool imagery. I was just like, man, this show, they're nailing down the imagery and just the reflections on all these different traumatic experiences and the timeline and the lineage. It's pretty clever.
It's very impressive. Like we're at a time now where we can have a show like this. This is a ridiculously complicated show based on a comic book that was meant to be unadaptable into a film,
and changing it so much, especially starting with Hooded Justice, right? Taking that character and blowing it wide open and making it this huge relevant thing in American history with racism and covering that up, and then tying that to Angela and all that stuff, I just think is so cool. It's a love letter to Watchmen. This is what, like Alan Moore, I think he would be like so surprised with what this is. I think he would have to. I don't think he could say anything negative about this.
I'm sure he could find a way.
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you.
I just think it's not your typical cash grab that you could say the 2009 film was, right? It was just adapting that very prolific book into a live action movie that had your classic live action or action movie tropes, which is what were some of the negative effects from it. But the show is trying to say something in the world today, much like the comic was.
Right.
So I can't see him not giving this some sort of props or a chance, even if he hears what's going on with it, right? With the political nature of it, the family nature of it. I think there's just so much to say that's all positive stuff.
If you take the show in contrast with much of the other superhero genre stuff that's out there,
it's insane.
It's night and day. This is a more realistic, if we can use that term in relation to this show, examination of these characters. They make a point of making sure each character is flawed, like emotionally.
People wearing a mask have something to hide.
Emotionally, intellectually, sexually, they have these flaws, and that was a huge part of the original Watchmen series. It wasn't about the bad guys versus the good guys. It was moral ambiguity. You know, even Veidt, as much as what he's done is something that is unimaginable. We can understand the logic behind it, right? It makes sense. And so this show, we're having a hard time. Like, so there's some things like, the white supremacy, that's a bit more cut and dry, black and white, that's bad.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like there's some sort of redeeming, quality there. But someone like Lady Trieu or Dr. Manhattan, once he starts actually becoming a factor in the show, that will be the case where, like, you won't, without condoning or condemning, you will understand their actions. Right. And I think that's what is powerful about the show, and I think that's why it resonates with people, is because in the real world it's all shades of gray. There is no right or wrong, hard lines, and so it's all about these characters doing the best they can with the information they have, and I think the show's doing a great job with that.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see the landing. I know they're gonna stick it. I have this feeling, but it's so unpredictable what the final image is going to be. What will it reflect? What will it try to say? And obviously, what will Dr. Manhattan do? The most powerful being.
And that's the thing. That could change literally anything and everything.
Yeah, I think Lady Trieu is she's gonna prevail. Like, whatever she's doing, I think the clock tower is a major component in this that will either disrupt whatever Dr. Manhattan can do. I think she just figured out something. And it's going to stop the 7K at the same time, which is essentially making more Dr. Manhattans or just extrapolating that power and whatnot. I can't wait.
I guess that's what's interesting. So, like we said earlier in the episode, that there's two factions, right? There's Lady Trieu and Will, the quote unquote good guys at this point.
Yeah, and Will's been battling Cyclops, white supremacy, all the way up until now, and killing Judd was the beginning that set it all off.
Also noticeably absent this episode, Will.
Will, yes. Yeah, true.
So I can't, like, after what Angela went through, we need a reckoning between the two of them.
Right. He was definitely absent, but his memory still popped up in
his
conjunction.
Presence is felt.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing is, take Veidt out of the equation, because who knows what that's all about. We have those two factions, and now Dr. Manhattan and Angela, that's the third. That's going to change everything, right?
Yeah, and then you have your side players like Looking Glass, who has a very interesting role now, wearing a Rorschach mask. Can't wait to see how that plays out. And then Laurie, I guess, she's just sidelined.
Unclear at this point. Yeah, like, she's captured by 7K, so it's not like they let her go.
And who would come and grab her, right? Maybe Dr. Manhattan, right? Now that he's here, could go get her. Maybe Night Owl makes a crazy surprise.
I'm pretty sure Night Owl is not going to be in the show, but I would love to see it. But no, it's going to be it's got to be Looking Glass. Like, I'm assuming he's already there and he's going to get her out.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense. Because they have a very funny relationship.
Yeah, like she kind of undercuts him and makes fun of him, and now he's going to save her. And that's just another example of how their stories are converging. Like, they're just through, like, not deliberately, just being brought into the same area.
The converging is just, it feels so, the pacing is good. I mean, sure, it's episode 7, but there's only 9. Like, I think it's been pretty good, and it's all converging pretty naturally, and it's not really, it doesn't feel super forced. It just feels like natural revelations.
Yeah, I keep, like, maybe it's a me problem in my head, but, like, with both this show and another show that we review, The Mandalorian,
right?
It feels like things, like, there's not enough time left in the season. In this example, there's only 2 episodes left, and there's a lot of content to get through. So I don't want it to feel like, everything happens in the last episode.
Right.
And traditionally with these shows, it's the penultimate episode, which is next week.
Yeah.
that has the biggest reveals and all that.
So like we said, that's going to be Dr. Man and Angela. It's got to be. And then we know that the clock tower with Lady Trieu is going to do something, and 7K, they're going to do their attack and get Dr. Man and kill him, take his powers. So the last two things I said are going to happen in the last episode, and we're going to get a lot of exposition about Angela and Dr. Man next episode. And then obviously I think Veidt and Laurie, get them together, linked up, saved.
Right.
And then we'll all head into
And
that final countdown where Veidt might even show up at the same time or whatever. Which now I'm thinking he's probably not in the golden statue. I think it would be cooler to
you thought he was literally in there?
I think there's a possibility.
Like he was like frozen in carbonite kind of thing? Like,
but not like alive, like he's dead.
Oh. Yeah, like what if that whole Veidt thing is just a mislead? Like this whole time we're just gonna be experiencing a story and like it relates to the story that we're watching.
Because Lady Trieu is the new evolution of him. He had his fate where he decided to go to this paradise, and it's just this funny thing where he's using his wits to escape, and maybe he does, but Lady Trieu is one step ahead of him.
I mean, it would be cool. I haven't really put a lot of thought into it because I could see that being like the Black Freighter version, like of this. So that's the Black Freighter that's telling a story that relates to the story that we're actually reading about.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's quite the same. It's not exactly an analog, but I don't know. I my gut is telling me that Veidt's going to be a feature. He's going to be alive in the show and meet with these characters within the next 2 episodes. Cool. And maybe we're trying to overthink it.
Yeah, for sure. We're trying to come up with as many theories as we can.
We know that they've said this season is meant to be self-contained. If there's a second season, whatever. But it's
gonna have a nice cap, something to say. Maybe left open to interpretation, but something final is gonna happen with either the 7K attack or Lady Trieu's clock tower, whatever it does.
Yeah, the idea is this season is it. If there's another season, they'll have to plan something else. But as far as we're concerned, episode 9 is the last of this series,
right? For
now. So this story needs to wrap up within the next couple episodes. Personally, can't wait.
Same here.
Okay, I think that's good for today. We'll wrap it up there. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, we love the emails. I love fan theories or going back and forth with some of you people. I say you people, I mean our fans. That's towerbabblepodcast@gmail.com. Twitter, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. Check out the Patreon if you are interested in supporting the show. It's a great way to do so and receive some bonus content. And like I said at the top, we're putting a lot of effort into the Patreon now and moving forward into the new year. There'll be a Christmas themed Patreon episode this month for the month of December. Okay, we'll be back next week with the episode 8, the penultimate episode. Oh, I should also mention I'm going to be doing a guest spot on a sister podcast of ours, the DVR Podcast Network. A friend of the show, Axel, has his own podcast network. They're great. He does a lot of content. He reviews Watchmen and among other shows. So check that stuff out as well. But I'll be doing a guest spot next week after episode 8. And we'll do a little bit of cross promotion there. Okay, we'll see you guys next week.